Hello students, I am Dr. Krupa Rasne, Professor and Head ENC Department, Jain College of Engineering, Belgavi. So let us continue with the module 2 and this is the sixth video in module 2. So in this module we will be referring to the textbook MD Singh and Kanchandani Power Electronics 2nd edition Tata McGraw-Hill 2009. As per the syllabus, we have already covered with the thyristors, introduction, principle of operation of SCR, static anode cathode characteristics of SCR, and two transistor model of SCR1. This we did in video 1. Then we did gate characteristics of SCR, turn on methods. Turn off mechanism we have done using natural and forced commutation, class A and class B types. In the fourth video, we have seen the comparison of transistors and thyristors as well as the gate trigger circuit with respect to resistance firing circuit. In the last video, that is video 5, we have looked into some problems with respect to resistance firing circuit, and we have also looked into the theory of resistance capacitance firing circuits and the problems. In this video, we'll be looking into UJT firing circuits and the derivations with respect to the firing circuits. So uni-junction transistor, this is the full form for UJT, and in this first figure we can see that the basic structure of UJT is defined. It is basically made up of an N type of semiconductor bar, okay, and two terminals are brought out, B1 and B2, and there is a P type of semiconductor that is injected as very small P type of semiconductor injected into this N bar, and a terminal is coming out, and that is emitter. So basically it's a three terminal device. The terminals are B2, B1 and E1. E, that is emitter. So basically if you look inside, you can represent this N bar as nothing but two resistances RB2 and RB1. The resistance that is connected to B2 we call it as RB2, and the resistance that is connected to B1 we call it as RB1. This is the point of intersection of the emitter terminal, which is basically nothing but a PN junction, because this is P and this basically is an N junction. In this symbol B, we call it as the UJT symbol with the emitter shown in this and slightly moving towards B1. Okay, so it is like an FET kind of a thing, but it is much different from an FET operation. If you look further, this PN junction can be equivalently represented as a diode, and we have this RB2 and RB1 represented here, and whenever I connect a bias voltage VBB between B2 and B1, a voltage will develop at this point A. That voltage can be found by using the resistance divider network formula, that is the voltage across A is nothing but voltage across RB1. Okay, so RB1 voltage can be found as VAB1, which is equal to VBB into RB1 upon the total resistance RB1 upon RB2. This can be further represented as eta times VBB. So obviously what is eta? Eta will become RB1 upon RB1 plus RB2. So this is in brief your unijunction transistor UJT. So unijunction transistor, let's go through it again a bit. UJT is an N-type silicon bar in which P-type emitter is embedded. It has three terminals, base 1, base 2 and emitter E. Between B1 and B2, UJT behaves like an ordinary resistor, and the internal resistances are given as RB1 and RB2 with emitter open. RBB is equal to the summation of these two resistances RB1 plus RB2. Usually the P region is heavily doped and N region is lightly doped. When BBB is applied across B1 and B2, we find that the potential at A is eta and is called as the intrinsic standoff ratio of UJT, and it ranges between 0.51 and 0.82. The resistor RB2 has a value between 5 to 10 kilo ohms, and this is the formula given for eta that, and also the voltage at point A where VAB1 is equal to eta VBB, where eta is RB1 upon RB1 plus RB2. So let us look at the important points about UJT. The device has only one junction, and so it is called as the unijunction device. The device, because of one PN junction, is quite similar to a diode, but it differs from an ordinary diode as it has three terminals. The structure of UJT is quite similar to that of an N-channel JFET. In a unijunction transistor, the emitter is heavily doped with the end region, and the end region is slightly doped. So the resistance between the base terminal is relatively high, typically around 4 to 10 kilo ohms, okay, when the emitter is open. The N-type silicon bar has high resistance, and the resistance between the emitter and base 1 is larger than that between emitter and base 2. It is because emitter is closer to base 2 than base 1. UJT is operated with emitter junction forward biased, while the JFET is normally operated with the gate junction reversed biased. So this is the difference between UJT and junction FET. UJT does not have the ability to amplify, but it has the ability to control a large AC voltage with a small signal. And it exhibits a negative resistance characteristics, and so it is employed as an oscillator. So in this basically slide we are going to see certain diagrams. This is basically your UJT with the normal UJT biasing, that is for the emitter we are connecting a VEE voltage, DC voltage, and we have VBB voltage connected between B2 and B1. Okay, so this is how a UJT is normally biased. Coming to this looks the equivalent circuit. Okay, so the UJT has been represented with this diode and the internal two resistances RB2 and RB1, which I discussed in previous slides. And this is the external voltage that we are applying along with the series resistance RE. Okay, this is external. So what we see in the dotted line is nothing but this particular UJT, and the outside the dotted line are externally connected. So if you see the operating states of this UJT, it is either off or it is in on state. So when is it off is when the emitter current is 0 and VE, that is the voltage at this point, this is VE, is equal to VEE. Because no current is flowing, the voltage whatever is here will appear across this particular diode. And when it is in on state, the voltage VE becomes equal to VV. VV is called as the valley point, will be explained to you in the next slides. And there is an emitter current that is flowing through this particular terminal, that is through this diode or PN junction. Okay, and it is value is limited. We can control this value by an external resistance RE. So VS is equal to your emitter voltage is equal to eta times VBB until UJT turns on, and once it turns on, the value of VE will change. So this is basically the UJT VI characteristics. So what we have drawn is, we have drawn VE here, that is the input voltage VE, versus your IE. IE is the current that is flowing through this diode. So if you see the expression, if I make this as variable, you can see that as VE is changing, okay, so the current is also through the diode or UJT is going to change. So I'll explain a bit slightly here. This is your origin. So here we see that there is a leakage current, negative current that is flowing through the diode, and that is because the voltage is very less or zero. This zero voltage is zero, which makes this diode as reverse biased, and hence there is a reverse leakage current that is flowing, and that is represented by IEO and a negative value to it. So around 1 microamperes flow through this reverse bias diode when the voltage applied is zero or very less. Now what will happen is, as I go on increasing this voltage, the leakage current through the diode will start to reduce, okay, and further on as I increase this V voltage, at a certain point it will reduce, become zero. What our current will reduce, become zero, and at this point the diode becomes forward biased. But typically the diode voltage drop varies from zero point 0.5 to point. Normally, if you see PN junction diode, we say 0.7. A drop of 0.7 has to come till it becomes forward bias. But here in UJT, this diode being internally, we can say it varies from zero point 0.5 onwards till 0.8. So let's say that at this point, okay, the VD voltage is equal to the diode will start to conduct. Now as diode starts to conduct here, it will reach a value called as V peak. Okay, so this is point where it is reaching V peak, and when it reaches V peak, it becomes equal to eta times VPB. Means there is a, when I apply VPB, there is at X value, I am going to have eta times VPB coming across V1. We have seen that, and hence when this voltage becomes equal to VD plus this Vx voltage, okay, that is eta times VBB plus VD, that is approximately 13.5 volts, it says. That is the V peak value. Suddenly the diode will start to conduct. Now when the diode conducts, obviously it will conduct and move towards B1. So what happens is the charges are flowing through RB1. RB1 has its own resistance value. We know RBB is RB1 plus RB2. And as more charges are flown through B1, the resistance of this B1 area starts to decrease, because more charges means more conduction, means more resistance decrease. So as resistance decreases, you can see after this the RB1 resistance starts to decrease and the current will increase. As resistance increases, this diode becomes more forward biased, because this voltage will become lesser than this voltage, right, as this reduces. So the diode becomes more forward biased and more emitter current will flow. More emitter current, more charges flowing through RB1, less, again resistance further decreases, voltage further decreases here. Again this voltage is much less than, further decreases with respect to E. So diode becomes more forward biased and current will further increase. So what you will find in this region after V peak is the voltage, okay, the voltage goes on decreasing, but the current will increase. Till what time? Till you reach a valley point, and we call it as a IV. That is, this emitter current will go on increasing till a saturation value, that is the valley point or IV value. Okay, after that, if I further increase VEE, emitter voltage, this voltage is made greater than this. After that, you will see that there will not be further drop in voltage, but the voltage will increase along with the current. Because how long can the charges go on accumulating here? At some point, the saturation value is reached. It cannot go on reducing the resistance after this point. And after this point, as more charges accumulate, then you are going to have this value fixed. Because of that, as voltage will increase and also current will increase. So this is basically the UJT characteristics curve. And this, if you see, there are three regions of operation. The region before this origin, that is the cutoff region. At that time, the current is going to be negative because diode is reverse biased, and the region between the V peak and the valley point, that is called as a negative resistance region, because Here why it is negative resistance is because there is a drop in voltage but rise in current, and this region is basically the region used when UJT is being converted as an oscillator. So this characteristics of UJT is important to us because UJT now starts, if I operate it in this region, it is possible to use it as an oscillator. And beyond this valley point, what we see is the saturation. Okay, so here they have given typical values that you can have a look at. That is, the reverse leakage current can maximum be 1 microamperes around. The current when V peak is reached, that is when diode will start to conduct, okay, that V peak value will have a corresponding IP current. So they have said if V peak is around 13.5, you can have I peak as a positive 6 microamperes, and in this valley point we can have valley voltage around 2 volts. So from 13.5 it will drop to 2 volts, and the corresponding current is going to increase from 6 microamperes to 5 milliamperes. So you can see this, and beyond this, when the voltage reaches a saturation value, okay, so that is 2.5, this final value, 2.5 voltage it will reach. So it will increase from 2 to 2.5. That time the current will increase from 5 to 50 milliamperes. So this is how we can look at the VI characteristics curve of the UJT. So let me go through the basic operation again. So when voltage VBB is applied between emitter E and base 1 B1 as reference, and the emitter voltage E is less than VD plus eta times VBE, the UJT is not going to conduct because diode is reverse biased. VD plus eta VB is designed as or designated as V peak, which is the value of voltage required to turn on the UJT. So UJT will turn on, or the diode becomes forward biased when that voltage becomes equal to V peak. Once VE is equal to V peak, that is VD plus eta times VBE, the UJT is forward biased and it conducts. When I say UJT is forward biased, the internal diode of the UJT gets forward biased and hence UJT conducts. The peak point is the point at which peak current IP flows and the peak voltage V peak is across the UJT. After peak point, the current increases, but voltage across device drops. This is due to the fact that emitter starts to inject holes into the lower doped N regions. Since P region is heavily doped compared to N region, also holes have longer lifetime. Therefore, number of carriers in the base region increases rapidly. Thus, potential at A falls, but current IE increases rapidly. RB1 acts as a decreasing resistor. The negative resistance region of UJT is between the peak point and the valley point. After the valley point, the device acts as a normal diode since the base region is saturated and RB1 does not decrease further. So continuing further with the UJT characteristics, the UJT that is unijunction transistor can be explained with three parameters: cutoff, negative resistance region and saturation. The cutoff region is the area where the unijunction transistor doesn't get sufficient voltage to turn on. The applied voltage hasn't reached the triggering voltage, thus making transistor to be in the off state. Then the negative resistance region is when the transistor reaches the triggering voltage V trigger. Unijunction that is, it reaches V peak value right here. That is, after a certain time, if the applied voltage increases to the emitter lead, it will reach out to V peak. The voltage drop from V peak to the valley point, this point, even though the current increases, that is the negative resistance region. Next is the saturation region, that is this after this the beyond point. The saturation region is the area where the current and voltage both are going to rise if the applied voltage at the emitter terminal is further increased. Okay, so now that we know the what is UJT and what is the characteristics of an UJT, how it can be used, let us look at some application of UJT transistor. The UJT transistor can be employed in a variety of applications such as a switching device, triggering device for triacs and SCRs, the timing circuits, and for phase control. We will understand what is phase control in the next module, and in sawtooth generators. It can be used like a simple relaxation oscillator. We know what an oscillator is. It will convert a DC to an AC with a certain frequency. Okay, now that we know that a UJT can be used as a relaxation oscillator, let us look at the circuit that is used to build this relaxation oscillator. In this figure A, we can see that an UJT, right, has been connected with these four external elements. That is, we connect an R2 connected to B2. Now, this R2 is different from the internal RB2, note that. And also we connect R1, an external resistance, to B1. And again, it is different from RB1 because RB1 and RB2 are inside the UJT. So, these two are external resistances, and these are the components R and C, which basically determines the frequency of the oscillator. So R and C are connected to the emitter terminal, and we will have a DC supply that is going to charge and discharge this particular capacitor. This is the equivalent representation. This UJT has been converted to a diode with the internal resistance RB1, RB2. These are the two external resistance R1, R2. R is the external resistance that we have used, and this is the capacitor. Now, if I look at the capacitor, the function of the capacitor is when the switch is on, right, the DC gets connected, and this diode is in off state, right? And this DC is going to be common as VBB as well as to this particular capacitor. So we know that once a DC supply is applied here at X, I am going to get the eta times VBB. Of course, now that this value will change because R1 and R2 are the external resistances we have to consider apart from eta. Anyway, this voltage will be there, and as long as the voltage at this point is greater than this by at least 0.5 volts, this diode is not going to conduct. So this path is going to be off. Hence, when the switch closes, the capacitor has to charge in this fashion, and it will try to charge to EDC. So the function of the capacitor is it will start to charge with a time constant of RC, okay, and try to reach the value of EDC. But what happens is, as it charges, it reaches the value of the V peak. So V peak value, when it reaches, the diode is going to start to conduct. Once it conducts, we know that UJT is turned on, or diode is turned on, and hence the UJT switch is turned on, and the capacitor will find a path now to discharge through this particular diode. And hence, if you see the capacitor voltage, instead of going further and charging to EBB, it will reach V peak and it will start to discharge. Now, how much can it discharge? It will discharge till the valley voltage is reached. Once the valley voltage is reached, what happens? The saturation is reached, and hence there will be no further decrease in this particular resistance. And hence what happens is the capacitor or the diode will become open. This voltage becomes equal to this voltage, and the diode will turn off. So this by the time has reached the value of VV. Okay, this turns off, and hence this capacitor has further time now again to start to charge. So this is how from this valley point again it will start to charge. reach the value of V peak, diode turns on and the capacitor discharges. Reaches the value point, okay, diode turns off, capacitor becomes open, again start charging from the input. So this is how a relaxation oscillator works. So it is UJT we know is a highly efficient switch. The switching times is in the range of nanoseconds, means it can quickly turn on and quickly turn off. Since UJT exhibits the negative resistance characteristics, it can be used as a relaxation oscillator. That region in the characteristics, the middle region, negative resistance region, it is because of that we can use the UJT as a relaxation oscillator. The circuit diagram here shown is with R1 and R2, and its value is very small compared to the internal values of RB1 and RB2. Hence we say that eta is almost same as we had earlier, but we need to use them for certain other reasons. The resistances R1 and R2 of UJT. So this is how a UJT relaxation oscillator circuit looks like. So we have got UJT here, and at B2 I am connecting this external resistance R2, and at B1 and R1 is connected. These are the R and C that is being connected at the emitter, which is going to and this VBB is going to act as a common voltage, and it is going to charge and discharge this particular capacitor when the UJT turns on. Okay, and because of this VBB, a certain voltage eta times VBB, that is V peak, will be developed at point A, and this is basically the voltage that is drawn for the relaxation oscillator. So VE versus your time. Okay, so this is the dark line. What we have seen is the way the capacitor charges. So initially when the circuit is connected, okay, the diode is in off state and the VBB will start charging the capacitor. So actually the capacitor will start from 0, but for only for the first cycle. So then after that further on it will start charging from VBB to V peak. So it will start charging, try to charge to VBB, but when its value reaches V peak, UJT is going to turn on. The minute it turns on, the capacitor gets a path to discharge in this fashion, and it will discharge till the value of valley voltage. And once it reaches, see, the charging time is going to be from R and C, right, like this. So this is a time constant which will be looked at, T1 equal to RC, but when it discharges, that is when UJT turns on, the discharge time constant is determined by R1, not by R. So it is going to discharge through time R1 into C. So this R1 into C, that is the discharge time constant. So this is the charging time constant and discharging time constant. The discharge time constant is very small because R1 is very small. Hence the capacitor is said to discharge almost instantly. And hence the time period, normally instead of considering T1 plus T2, we normally consider only the charging time of the capacitor. And then this is so it's like a single spike, okay, very small, and what this is the output voltage, and this is the output which is connected to the gate of an SCR. Okay, so what you will get at the gate of the SCR is these spikes, and these are determining the firing pulses to the gate. This is the difference between a pulse and a spike kind of triggering. Instead of pulse, if I give a spike triggering to the gate, it is more efficient. That is, it will surely turn on the thyristor. So here gate is connected, here cathode is connected of the SCR. So the output of the UJT relaxation oscillator is across R1. And how is that R1 developed? R1 will develop only during the discharging of the capacitor. Hence, it will be output is 0 as long as the capacitor is charging and reaching the value of V peak. After V peak, it will discharge, and at R1, I am going to get this spike. So whenever it discharges, output will be developed. That will act as the train of triggering pulses to the gate of the SCR. So in the previous slide, we have seen that the relaxation oscillator has a frequency and the period of oscillation T is nothing but the charging time of the oscillator. So let us derive the equation for the charging time T. So the period of oscillation of the UJT can be derived based on the voltage across the capacitor, because how the capacitor charges, that gives the period of the oscillation. Here we assume that the period of charging of the capacitor is lot larger than the discharging time. Using initial and final value theorem for voltage across any capacitor, we know that, so for any capacitor, we know that the voltage across the capacitor is equal to V final value, right? Let's see if the capacitor is charging, right, from initial to the final value VPP. So VC equal to V final, right, plus initial minus final value into e to the power of minus t by RC. This is the general initial and final value theorem basically used to calculate the voltage across the capacitor. So let us use this formula to derive the expression for this T. So let us call that T as the period as capital T, and we are neglecting the, we are only considering the T1, T2 is neglected in the previous graph. So let us see this T is equal to capital T, hence, and Vc is nothing but the capacitor voltage is going to charge to V peak, right? It is trying to charge to VBB, but that is its final value is actually VBB, but when it reaches the value of V peak, it is going to discharge. So the initial value will consider as valley because it will not charge, it will discharge only till VB. So we have T equal to capital T, Vc equal to V peak, and V initial is nothing but the valley voltage VV, V final is nothing but VBB. So if I substitute, I will get V peak is equal to VBB plus VV minus VBB, initial minus final, into e to the power of minus capital T by RC. Now, if I solve this particular expression, I will get an equation for T equal to RC log of E VBB minus VV upon RVBB minus VP. When we are deriving this, we should remember that e to the power of minus T by RC is same as 1 upon e to the power of T by RC. Then you take it on the left hand side and this will become V peak minus VBB. Now, valley voltage is much smaller as compared to VBB. So, we can neglect this VV. So, if I neglect VV, this expression becomes VBB as a common point into 1, this is 0, minus, okay, e to the power of minus t by RC. So, just solve it using logarithmic on both sides. I should be able to get an expression like this. So again coming to just little more explanation. So VVV is considered very less compared to VBB, and this is the time period I am looking at, the charging of the capacitor from the initial value valley point till the final V peak, initial value to the final value. Okay, so I substitute that, consider VV as 0, so I will get this expression where T is equal to RC log of 1 upon, divide both the numerator denominator by VBB, I get 1 upon 1 minus VP by VBB. But what is V peak? V peak, here V peak is nothing but eta times VBB plus VD. Assuming VD is very less compared to VBB, okay, then I will get V peak is nothing but eta times VBB. Okay, and hence substituting I will get T is equal to RC log. Okay, so now that we have derived the time period of the oscillation, let us look at how to design the UJT oscillator itself. Means basically how to find the values of R, C, R2 and R1. So in this particular circuit, the resistance R here, what we have seen, is limited to a value between 3 kilo ohms and 3 mega ohms. So these are some of the things we have to keep in mind. The value of R is limited between 3K to 3 mega ohms, and the upper limit on R is basically set by the requirement that the load line formed by R and this VBB, it will intersect the device characteristics to the right side of the peak point but to the left side of the valley point, that is in the negative resistance region. The load line has to be there, then only this R value will definitely have an R max and R minimum, that will be between the peak value point and the peak point and the valley point. If the load line fails to pass to the right of the peak point, the UJT will not turn on and this condition will not be satisfied. Hence, we should see if VBB minus IPRB, see VBB minus IPRB is the R is the voltage drop when peak current is flowing through this. So this minus the drop across this, that is nothing but the voltage across the capacitor. That voltage has to be greater than V peak. Okay. Therefore, with this I come to get the value of R. So R value has to be less than VBB minus V peak divided by I peak. So we have found what should be the maximum value of R, and that it shows that the value of R has to be less than VBB minus V peak by IP. So at the valley point, we have the current that is flowing now at the valley point is IB, and the voltage that is developed across capacitor will be equal to the valley voltage. So the condition for turn off, this was the condition for turn on, that it should be on the right side of V peak, but for condition of valley point, the VBB minus the current flowing through this IV into R, this voltage is equal to the capacitor voltage, has to be less than VV. So I get this as less than VV, therefore R value has to be greater than VBB minus VVB divided by IV. So these are the two extreme values of R which are determined by taking the V peak and V peak voltage and the valley voltage of the negative resistance characteristics region. The recommended range of the supply voltage. Now what should be VBB? It should be from 10 to 35 volts. Okay, the width of the triggering pulse TG. So TG is the width of the triggering pulse that will happen when the capacitor will discharge through R1. So to get the triggering pulse, TG should be equal to RB1 into C. Why we are taking RB1 as? Because RB1 is much larger than R1. In general, RB1 is limited to the value of 100 ohms and RB2 has the value of 100 ohm or greater and can be approximately RB2 equal to 10 to the power of 4 upon eta BB. So these are basically the resistances that are connected to B2 and B1. These are the formulas that are used to get the values of RB1 and RB2. So basically the summary of this video or of this class goes like this. We have seen what is a UJT, we have defined it, and we have also seen the internal structure of UJT. We have also seen the UJT equivalent circuit. We have looked into the UJT characteristics and the regions that are there in the characteristics. We have seen how UJT can be used as a relaxation oscillator and how to derive the time period of the relaxation oscillator. We have also done the designing of UJT, that is how to get the components that are connected in a UJT oscillator. In the next video, we'll look into the synchronized UJT triggering circuit followed by some UJT related problems. So thank you, and please get back to me if you have any questions.